$100 million investment in rail in Northland is expected to help pave the way for moving Auckland's port north and ease heavy traffic on the region's roads.
The latest funding announcement for the rundown link was made today as part of the government's Provincial Growth Fund. Helen Castles was there.
Trying to keep it cool on the Northland tracks and giving the region's rail another boost.
$109.7 million to ensure that as far north as Sky Tyre, we speed up the process, cut the costs.
The Northland Rail line is around 100 years old and is in desperate need of a rebuild. Today's investment will see 13 tunnels between Swanson and Whangarei deepened, so bigger containers are able to fit through, and 5 bridges repaired.
We have to have an infrastructure that's capable of handling a container size that keeps getting taller.
Every year, 30,000 containers full of cargo move up and down this region by road. Changes to the tunnels will make it possible for all those containers to use rail.
Anything that improves freight in and out of Northland is good for industry, and if we get to the next stage where the rail goes out to the wharf and we get some more container ships coming to Northland, absolutely, it'll be great.
$40 million is also being spent on buying land for a new spur line to Marsden Point, a potential first step in moving Auckland's port north.
The inevitable is that the ports of Auckland have to be addressed and moved by 2035. Any smart business person or economy knows if that's the case, start now.
The Prime Minister warning not to read too much into the move, though.
I think it's a strong signal that we are a common sense government, that it makes sense to connect your port to rail.
The Northport line north of Whangarei will also be reopened with a container terminal built at the Oteria rail yard in Moriwa, offering some respite for the struggling town.
Hopefully breathe some life back into that lovely place.
Around 200 contractors will be working on the upgrades, and the line's expected to be ready for freight by September. Helen Castles, One News.
A major boost for Northland's economy. That's how the government's pitching a nearly $100 million investment in Northland Rail.
It'll see repairs to the neglected North Auckland Line, but some say road upgrades should come first. Katie Bradford has more.
Whistling for Northland votes.
All aboard the Northern Express.
Hundreds jumping on board the Shane Jones Express to see why this 151-year-old rail corridor needs a $100 million facelift.
If you want more economic activity, investment, expansion and further growth in Northland, we have got to invest in infrastructure.
The line runs from West Auckland to Whangarei. Nearly a third of the 180-kilometre track will be upgraded or replaced. And there'll be vital maintenance, like repairs to 13 tunnels and 5 bridges.
This railway line would have closed within 12 months. Some of these tunnels are that old, 80 years without any funding whatsoever. They're due for closure.
The upgrade has long been promised by New Zealand First, which says it'll take thousands of freight trucks off the road and create hundreds of jobs in Northland.
We can get our goods down to Auckland in time, and we can get, if we get the port moving, we can get the goods down there as well.
So far, the business case appears to be Shane Jones likes spending money in Northland. That's not really a business case.
Major improvements have long been needed in tunnels like these on the North Auckland Line. So while it's welcome news for those wanting to take freight between Auckland and Whangarei, those hoping for a commuter line will have to wait a little bit longer. The line's simply not safe enough for passenger rail, and also no plans for commuter rail into the city.
Kuemu and the West Auckland is going crazy for development, so a commuter train service is just logical and needs to happen now.
But many also want the road turned into 4 lanes to Whangarei.
That's what all the regional mayors want, that's what Northlanders want, that's what they would have got under a national government, and frankly it's disgraceful that this government has cancelled that project.
Today, just a start, but a lot more work needed to get Northland completely on track. Katie Bradford, One News.
News Hub can exclusively reveal the proposed upgrade of Northland's rail network could cost more than $1 billion. If it goes ahead, the track from Auckland to Whangarei would be upgraded, the lines to Moriwa and Dargaville reopened, and the link to Northport constructed. However, there's a fine line between the cost of building it and the predicted benefits from it. News Hub Nation's John Michael Swanix has this report.
Northland Rail has been starved of investment for 50 years, and now it's crunch time.
It's at a point now that if we don't get investment, we'll probably have to look at closing it within the next 3 or 4 years.
The business plan says it would take $1.3 billion over 40 years. For some locals, it's an investment worth making.
Jobs to start off with, there's going to be many constructive, great jobs for Northlanders. Tourism, we've got increasing investment into Whangarei and Northland. We need to be able to bring the tourists here. And thirdly, freight options for local business, so they can use rail when appropriate.
Right now, only 1% of Northland's freight is moved by train. That's partly because there is no rail link between the main trunk line and Northport, where ocean-going ships dock. Take the example of logs from a town like Whangarei. They'd be more easily transported to and from the port by train rather than truck.
We harvest about 300 hectares of land every year annually, and these logs will all go down to Northport.
The plan says there would be 75,000 fewer truck trips a year on Northland and Auckland's roads, easing congestion, reducing road maintenance costs, preventing crashes and cutting greenhouse gas emissions. However, the cost-benefit analysis reveals a fine line and includes a major expansion of Northport's operations, which would take the handling of more than 300,000 containers away from Auckland. Officials have worked out that for every dollar spent, there would be a profit of 19 cents. But without that major expansion at Northport, the benefits drop down, a return of just 32 cents on every dollar spent.
The reality is that if you're into the business of nation building, you cannot capture every perceived benefit over a 50 to 100 year period of time through one consultant's report.
So has the government set $1 billion aside in the budget?
Rail obviously is going to enjoy great attention coming up in the budget. I'll leave that to my leader to elaborate.
A hint if there ever was one. John Michael Swanix, News Hub.